And so when they wanted something sweet, that's what they would use for candy. You could put that, I mean, there's a whole lot of different things, but you can put it in your tea or coffee, you know, you can use it into syrup, just different things. So this is one of the images I wanted to share with you. A little close-up, they look kind of weird. They're kind of amber in color, but you know, we have them all over. This is a sap that's coming out, the syrup that's coming out of the mesquite tree. And it looks like it's just black. It'll stay in your car. I've seen people park under it, and I always look where I'm parking, because if they drip in your car, it's going to leave a stain. But I wanted to show you that. That's very important, and I'll get to that as I'm working through this PowerPoint. This is the bark from the sap that has a black on it, and between the syrup, the candy, and this mixed together with your own recipe, this is what's used for paint. It's used for a variety of different things. Used for hair dye. If you pack mud, there is an area that's called black mud, and it's mixed with this and the mud, and you can dye your hair and use it for face paint, multi-purpose. That's why I'm talking about these mesquite trees in relationship to us as human beings. What it gives us, what are we giving them? I'll get to that. One time I was walking along and I seen the syrup. I have never seen that syrup drip like that. So every day I'd walk by. Every day I wanted to take it, you know, because it looks really cool. But again, you know, it's not like if somebody has a nice purse, I'd go over and take their purse. I wouldn't do that, you know, and I hope you wouldn't do that for me. But that was the idea, you know, in relationship, having that relationship. So I walked by. And then I missed a few days. It rained and it was gone. So I didn't even get to see, you know, did it fall on the floor? Did it dissolve? You know, what happened? Again, a little different view. This is my daughter. We were demonstrating. We also are affiliated with the Heard Museum, and we were doing demonstration work. And the reason I put this photograph up is because if you see the wooden piece right here, that's a piece from the mesquite tree. Again, going back to the tools and the relationship. This is how it supports us. You have the stone tool in there as a pounder, and you have the mesquite stump holding your clay, because we work with clay, we make beads. My interest is in how do we process. So we'll go and get the clay, put it in the little stump there, use the pounder and pound it, and then sift it out to a flour-like substance. And this is what she's doing. In the background you can see a little bit of clay. We're talking with kids. She's demonstrating. But that one, I need to get a better photograph of that one. But there's a lady in my community. She's just turned 89. A very, very well-known potter, Yolanda Hart Stevens. I've always connected with her, and she'll give me, you know, clay, or she'll tell me this or that, you know. And one day I went to her house and she had a file and she was cleaning the sides of those the stump, and I thought, oh, what are you doing, you know, and let me help you, you know. So I started helping her, and she was cleaning and filing it, cleaning it up. And then we got done, and I go, did you want to do anything else with it? And she goes, I don't know, do you? And I said, I don't know, why? And she said, it's for you. And she said, I think what you're doing is important. I think that you're serious. I think that you're going to be doing something with the clay. And kind of in a half joking but in a supportive way, she says, and don't lie to people, you know, commercial clay. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, got it. So that, I didn't even measure it, but that's what we use. That's what we take outside, sit in the carport, pound and sift. And this is another version of that same image. And you can see the clay in the back that the kids are working on. She's working with the kids, demonstrating, showing them how to make clay. I mean, yeah, you can go and buy commercial, and it's good, and I don't have a problem with that, but with what we're doing and why we're doing what we're doing, and again, the relationship to the mesquite tree, that's why we do do it that way. And you know, I have her support, so I'm just feeling great. Okay, on the other side over there, you see the little strips of bark, and you see how the sap has dripped on there and it made it black. And then you see the little pot there and my beads. So, you know, in commercial glass beads, they're beautiful. You can get tri-cuts, you can get, you know, charlatans, you can get all kinds of beads, but I'm looking for organic colored. And so for me to make a clay bead that's the color of dirt, I want it to look black, so I'll get the sap, I'll get the bark and cook it in there for a considerable amount of time. And then just watch it, you know, stir it, watch it, put water in it, and then make the beads. That's what I'm doing there. This is another version of the bark that's in there with the water. And again, like I said, it's a considerable time to cook it, and just a different look. I didn't have anything real good to strain it with, so we had some material, and that's what the purple is down there, and put it in there to strain it, so we didn't get any little weird things. So again, back to the clay that I was talking about. Pounding, sifting, using the stump, trying to color it with the sap, give it some color. This is how we fire. I fired with kiln before. I don't know a lot about it. It's interesting, it's good, it's quick and easy. I know that it comes up to maybe 1400 the temperature degrees. But this I've never measured before. And you know, we'll put our items inside and then cover it with a metal piece. I have 6 granddaughters and everybody does something. And this one particular time, you know, she has to go chop the wood, go find the wood, make sure it's dry, start bringing it, split it, start my fire. We usually fire in the evening because, you know, it's warm and we have to watch it, because if we have any embers blowing, something could catch on fire. So, you know, they're watching it and they're just getting different things, but this is just one image of her getting it. So I have one granddaughter that does that. That's it. That's all she does, you know, wood. And I have a couple others. I'm not sure if I have photographs of them helping me with the clay. Another one that helps me with the paint. She's real good at the consistency. Is it too watery? Is it too runny? How is it going to look? And then I have one granddaughter who's like, I can't do any of this, but I'll make pizza, you know, I'll get a movie, I'll turn music on, I'll clean the floors, you know, I'll pick up and set up. And I'm like, hey, that's life, that's what we do, you know. And then we monitor the beads as we go along. Another image of them out there throwing stuff in there to burn up. And I said, that's how it is with a business. Not everybody does the same thing, and it's okay. You know, nothing wrong with it. Again, this is just another view of when we start to put it on fire. I'm not sure what we have in there this time. And then sometimes we'll use this corrugated tin around it, just to, you know, make sure the embers don't go anywhere. So that's, again, back to the relationship with the mesquite. I talk about it being close to us in terms of life to death. And by that I'm talking about the mesquite root. And the cradle board there, that one is about almost 37 years old, maybe 38 years old. And that is made from mesquite root. That's what the baby carriers were like back in the day. A lot of people were taken back. A lot of people were, you know, almost, I've had people stop me and say, my children were all raised in that, my grandchildren were in it. But I've had people stop me and saying, how can you tie up a baby? How can you tie up your kid? You know, it's abusive. And I'm like, no. You know, when you're carrying a child, it's, you know, all wrapped up inside of you. And then when you're exposed to light, sound, smell, everything, you still need to have that wrapping. And that's what's going to keep a baby comfortable. So a lot of times, you know, that's what we do, you know, if a baby's just kind of throwing around the arms, thrashing and everything, you know, we'll just get it, make sure it's, you know, dry and clean, and tie it up in a blanket, and most of the time they settle down. So this is the cradle board, the base, and then the hood that goes over it. And if you notice that hood, it kind of, the cradle board lays flat and the hood goes around it. And I consider that the original roll bar. You see roll bars on trucks now, right? Why are they on there? To protect the people that are in it. But they don't give natives any kind of credit for that one. But I always call that the original roll bar. So I was in it, you know. My mom picked cotton, and she would literally hang me in a tree. And my arms would be out and stuff, and she said she wanted to be sure and see if I was okay. And I seen her, she seen me, I was fine. So we use that to cover, you know, for the light and different, if it's cold, you know, that kind of stuff. That one's another version. Girls and boys have different colors. And that's, I'm not sure, I have 2 great-granddaughters. I think that was my first great-granddaughter in that one. And she looks fine to me. This is the office. You know, we talk about, again, the mesquite tree. You know, I was talking about it from beginning, from life, from it, you know, giving, to the paint, to the seeds, food, you know, everything that we could use from it, and we still use it for this kind of shade. You know, a lot of times when people come over, and even if there's a loss in the community, these little sheds would go up to give people, you know, a little shade and a little somewhere to be, you know, when things are going on. So that's what I'm talking about, from life to death. And again, like I said, when I was out there with the eagles, you know, that's my little hot rod, so that was the office. And this guy, he would come around. He was a little, right below there was a little wash, and a little ground owl, little bitty, I don't know, little bitty, maybe 4 or 5 inches tall. But he would come and he would say whatever, and then he would leave. But he was only watching his own kids, so that was okay. But what's covered on top of there is arrowweed. We have a lot of arrowweed here, and that's what's laid on top of it. And that's mesquite right there. That's a little better shot, a little better photograph. And we'd sit and park under it, literally, you know, and be out there. Again, this was the office. Yeah, that was before the sheds were built, so I'd be sitting under mesquite trees. These guys too, I don't know if anybody's familiar with south of Chandler, Gila River, that's the northern boundary, and that area has been identified as Wild Horse Pass. And the reason for that are they're wild. People ask me about that all the time, you know, like, are they really wild? Well, don't go near them, you know, they're crazy. And they're just not used to it. But these guys, one of the highly prized things for them is a mesquite bean, to eat that. So they're out there just looking for food too. I was sharing earlier about how I have 3 huge mesquite trees that are over 35 years old. And the thing about these mesquite trees, you know, you can't water them and treat them, feed them like you would other trees, I guess, or plants. They have their own life, they have their own processing of water, they have their own way to grow. And so my mom, my folks would come over, you know, and they're in their 80s, and they would come over and they would start raking up my yard, you know. So I'd get it from my people that live nearby me, like, how come you other folks are cleaning up your yard, clean up your own yard, you know. But I was like, no, that's not what they're doing. They just, you know, scrape it all up to pick up the mesquite bean pods, and because they had horses and they would take it home. So then the wild horses started going to their house, so they had to be real careful with when and how they fed their horses. So, and these are out here in the community, and it is a wild horse pass, literally. As I mentioned earlier, we were out there. I was out there in the office doing observation. We have eagles in our community, and the two with the white heads are the parents, mom and dad. Mom's the bigger one, dad's the smaller one, and the one that's in there that has no color is baby. So I know when I took my granddaughter, I don't remember how old she was, we took her out there and we were trying to get a name for the baby, and so she named it Bubbles. And I was like, well, why do you want to name it Bubbles? I thought it was weird. And she said, well, when you blow on bubbles, they eventually fly. And I'm like, oh yeah, but some of the older ones were like, how come you want to name it after Michael Jackson's monkey, you know? Anyway, that was just kind of funny. This is them from a different view looking north. We have in our community what's called the Pipash wetlands, and this was developed to continue to help grow some of the organics. Black and white looks kind of weird, but that one's a little different one, but that's where they lived. And the mom was always squawking. She didn't like company. I would go by and talk to them and tell them I'm here, just letting you know, just talk to them like I would any of you. How are you doing? Everything okay? And she would talk back, so I wouldn't stay too long. This is the other, one of the organics. You know, we were kind of talking earlier about the relationships to what we have in this community. And this one is the yucca and agave leaf. A lot of times, you know, people do landscape and they decorate their homes or businesses with the yucca and the agave. But, you know, sometimes they'll die, the little piece will die, you know, and so I go over there and cut it off. And, you know, sometimes whatever maintenance or people there would say, hey, don't be cutting up our plants, you know. We don't appreciate you coming over. And so I'm like, hey, what are you going to do with them? You're going to cut them up and throw them in the trash. I'm going to take them home and take care of them and use them. So do you want to go throw them? Do you want me to, you know, take them out of the trash, or do you want me to just take it now? And it's usually only one. So they got, what, 20 little leaves on there. So I don't think one dead one is going to hurt. But that's kind of what they look like as they're dried out. It's a little close-up. You can see the little thread, and the reason that I'm putting this up there is because this is the original thread. Clothes were made out of it. Bowstrings were made out of it. It was used for beadwork. And when it's boiled to a certain degree, you can take it out, smash it up, and thread it, and you have thread. Sew your clothes. That's what it looks like when it's kind of taken apart and cleaned. You can braid it. You can do just about anything you want with it. It's thread. It's strong. Used for bowstring. So yeah, it's strong. I put that out just to talk to people about it and let them take a feel, and you know, they're surprised. People are surprised. And here we are with the clay beads, and I have commercial beading thread sitting there, but I also have the traditional yucca fiber. And my daughter was doing these, working on, she wanted to know, well, how does it feel? What is it like? You know, can we really use it? And so she was experimenting then, making earrings. And this was when she started out doing it. I'm like, I don't know, you try out for yourself, and you tell me what you think. And that's what she was doing. There's one of the finished products. She decided to go ahead and tie it up, you know, and use it like that and leave it as a little fringy look on there, and that's one of the clay beads. That's a little different version. Back to the sap, back to the bark, back to the dye. There's the paint right there. I don't want to put like commercial, I mean, I could get a Sharpie, whatever, you know, and do that. There's a lot of things, and that's what the elder lady meant when she gave me that pounder and sifter to do this. That's why she said, straight up, don't lie. And at first I kind of laughed, but I didn't understand really what she was talking about. And it's these unimportant things to anyone else, you know, but to me. I've already been told. And, you know, when we're growing up, sometimes, you know, younger people will say, well, I was never told this or that, you know. I was told, so I could cheat, but now I know. And that's the bead next to a commercial bead. That's the difference. This is one time I was over at the Boys and Girls Club. It's been a while. And we wanted to work with clay. We didn't know what we were going to do. Pots were, you know, something that they weren't really interested in. So if you can tell, the little tiles were there. I think we did 50 tiles. I don't remember how many kids, but we had 50 tiles, and we were getting them ready because you have to warm it up before you take it and put it in the fire. You can't put it in cold or crack. Anyway, we had 50, and all 50 survived. But they were like, well, what are we going to do with tiles, you know? What do you want us to put on there? And I said, you tell me, you know. You're going to come back in 10 years, 20 years, and look at that tile, and art does that, you know. It tells you where you were in your life and what was going on. I don't know, put your girlfriend's name, put a color on there, put an image on there, put whatever you want on there. So when you come back, you're going to look at that piece and think, oh yeah, yeah, this is what was going on. This is why I did that. Or, oh man, my friend isn't here anymore, you know. Or, we're not friends today. I mean, it's all of that, and it's only for you. It's personal. And this is what they did. Some of them were, we were imprinting leaves on different trees, because I said, look around, town is coming towards us, you know. We might not have the trees we have. We might not have all what's available now. So they were imprinting leaves in there. And what we did with these tiles is we took them and we hung them in the boardroom of the Boys and Girls Club, because we wanted the board to know that this is a sign of that time, whenever that was, 15 years ago, you know. And how are these kids going to develop? Are they going to go on to school? What are you doing as a board? Let this be a reminder to the board. What is it you're here for, and what are you doing for the club, and what more can you do? You know, the follow-up. Everything we do, there's always maintenance and a follow-up. Another organic that's kind of hard to find, this is tobacco. And we have this tobacco in our community. One is indigenous and one is from Mexico. And there's a certain process in how we get our tobacco. I don't smoke, but you know, the leaves and whatever that's fallen off, we usually pick them up when they're already dead, and then we crush them up. So we use them as an offering. We use them to gift other tribes with that come, and along with that clay, I also make pipes. So, you know, I always remind kids, especially in the juvenile detention center, you know, don't slam these pipes with just drugs. You know, they were used for things like this, for prayer, blessings, for gifts. So we smoked, the yellow one is a little bit more harsher than the white one. And I haven't been out there lately to see how are the tobacco plants coming. You know, we got that water going through the Salt River now that's along that area. And I'm like, why is everybody getting so excited? There's water in the river. That's how it's supposed to be. It's not a flood. But this one too, you know, what do you call it? Spinach. This is spinach. And again, the elder, we went out there. They come out a certain time of the year. They're only out there for a few days, and boom, when they're dead, they're dead. They don't come back. So, and you have to pick like a big trash can full to get a nice little pot. So this was something that I wanted to talk about. We went out there a couple of years to look at the spinach a couple of years ago, and she said, you know what, there's too much agriculture, there's too much chemicals going on. Don't pick it, don't eat it, wait. And so that's what I went with. Another image of the spinach. Again, back to the beads, because that's what I do. I work with clay. I've done pottery. It doesn't speak to me. Beads do. So this is how we, again, use the commercial along with traditional and try to incorporate it all together so that people see it and can understand that this was beads before there were commercial beads. And it's funny because the three girls are sitting there, my three granddaughters will be sitting at the table, and they'll look at each other's work. That one doesn't look good, da 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 da, you know. And I'm like, well, that's what's called quality control. You know, we don't want to put out junk. And if you're putting out junk, it's all of us. It's quality control. So take your time. I'm not asking you to do 1,000 by 6 o'clock. Just do the best you can. So that's kind of something. And then she mixes the red too from red clay for me. Again, another shell and clay beads. Again, we're trying to incorporate the shell. We did put some commercial. Those are coral red along with shell, the white shell, and then the clay bead, white shell, coral red, and back to white. And that's what I consider beadwork. There's our beads again, the black. Some of them we burned up, you know, intentionally. Some of them we put the sap on. Some are micaceous that I get from my friend Sheldon Nunez in Hickory, Apache. He'll bring me some. I make beads with that. And my friend Dorothy Ami from Hopi, we get those as well. So that's how I want color to come. I don't want to, again, I could spray paint it, you know, but I'm already told not to cheat or not to lie either. And again, that's just the beads. Those are the ones that have been, sometimes we put organics inside so that it'll smoke intentionally and make it black. Those are the micaceous from Hickory, Apache. And I'm real grateful for that clay. We still have to process it too, you know, and but it is a natural organic color. And I like that one. That's my interpretation of whirlwind. We have male and female whirlwinds that come, spirits, and one's, you know, obviously larger than the other. I can't make a whirlwind, so I did my interpretation of it. I didn't do the basket, but the basket is from Autumn guy, and what I wanted to do with the two pieces of whirlwind is the male and female is it's not male and female from here or there, it's just human being, male and female. And so what I wanted this to do is support the basket maker so that he can continue to make his basket and learn and develop. And so these guys are from the past and they're there to literally support him in that sense. Same thing with the commercial. We do a lot of the braided beads, braided in 3 different colors, but then we also use the traditional clay beads in there. And sometimes they're kind of a little off, like you see, and you know, the girls will say, well, I did what I could, I didn't know it was off. I'm like, hey, it's handmade. It's not gonna be perfect, but it's okay. Just don't do it and be lazy and, you know, throw it in there. One of my pieces was in the fashion show. It's been a while at the Heard Museum. I didn't do the clothes, I only did the jewelry. And again, with the red clay beads and commercial. I was talking earlier about the pottery that, you know, I've done it, but I don't really do a lot of it. This image is from the permanent collection at the Heard Museum. And you can see the black on some of the pottery. That black is the paint from the mesquite tree, the sap, and the candy. It's the mixture of it. A lot of these pots were, gosh, you know, 50s, thereabouts. And they're still high shine, high polish. I had a business associate, her and I were able to select the pieces in that collection, and then I made the dress. And on the dress, the arms are open full. Usually there's a band cuff on the arms, but when I went to one of my elders and I was asking her, well, I'm going to make this dress and this is what it's going to look like, and all of that. She said, leave the arms open. And I said, why would you do that? And she said, because when you're working, you don't want to be confined by a cuff, so leave it open. And people ask me that all the time, well, that's not right, or you didn't finish it, or why didn't you put a cuff? It's because she told me, she's not here anymore, but she told me, don't put a cuff on there, because it's a working dress. It's nice, but it's a working dress. Anyway, that's where the black comes from, and all these potteries were fired the same way. Nobody used a kiln. Nobody went in and did those kinds of things. Another one, this is also at Kai at Wild Horse Pass Resort in the restaurant there. And that one again is fashioned after our beadwork, but I did it in clay beads. And again, burned the black for a design. So that's been there for a little while. That one is over at the casino. That's a 4x8 piece. And again, you know, burning the black and making the design. Colorado River style Cape necklace design. Just did a version of it. All clay beads. This one was real controversial. This one is also at Wild Horse Pass Resort. Anyway, a lot of people weren't happy with it. I got a lot of flack for it. And I'm like, and then I entitled it, oh man, I can't think about that. But anyway, Fractured. That was the title for this piece, is Fractured. So, you know, it's not pretty colors, it's not a beautiful painting, it's not whatever pottery. And I said, no, it's not, because you know what, the casino is here, they were just starting to work on the 202 freeway, went through the Sacred Mountain, you know, all of that. And I said, this is my version of the road. You know, you got the center line with your white stripes. I said the footprints is the center line. That's my granddaughter. She's 14 now, but those are her footprints. And she's walking on the dirt road. The black is resembling the pavement, which how it is now. And the clay, it is different colors, burnt, because that's how we used to walk, but now it's changed. Now it's all different. And the center of the road, like I said, and the black being the pavement. And some of them are broken, and I said that's the reason, you know, that I use that title, is because we're all fractured in our language, in our tradition, in foods. You know, we're fractured. You know, they want to go to McDonald's. I don't want to sit here and grind corn. You know, we're fractured, and that is the statement I was making. So didn't go over well. It's not pretty, but I liked it, so that's all that matters for me. Okay, I think that that wraps up the slideshow portion of it, and I don't know if you had received any questions.
So thank you so much, Yolanda, for that wonderful talk and all the photos too, and talking us through your artistic process. I'm going to invite our virtual audience now to go ahead and ask any questions they have in the chat or using the survey. But I kind of have one question to kind of start us off. When we were talking previously, we kind of talked about some of the development that's been going on, you know, in Phoenix, and also just the impact of the drought. And I was wondering if you could comment on, like, have you seen any changes to the landscapes that have affected, like, your access to gathering natural materials for your artwork? And also, like, I guess, what do you see happening in the future? Like, are you concerned about, you know, having access to mesquite trees to continue your work, and thinking about also your grandkids and your great-grandchildren being able to continue some of the practices that you've been teaching them? Do you see that, you know, at odds with some of the development, but also just like the changes to the landscape?
You know, when I share this with my granddaughters, my kids too, but you know, I was telling them when I first started driving, I started driving on the I-10, and you know, I was really, I don't know how old, 14, 15, I don't know, remember, but I was on the I-10, and I was telling them that's when the freeway came up, and they were cracking up, like, oh, Grandma, you're old, you know, what do you mean, you know, you started driving and the freeway just came? And so now my granddaughters are driving, and the 202 just came through. And my granddaughter, the youngest one time she was telling me, we're going to go play on that little hill. And I go, what hill is that? And she goes, look at that hill right there. And they had just leveled off. They had, you know, in my opinion, desecrated South Mountain, you know, which is a sacred mountain. They had done all of that. They were leveling it off. They were getting it ready to do pavement. And she goes, man, that dirt road is real good. You know, we can ride our bikes. We can do all this stuff up there. And I go, really? And so time went on. I asked, are you still going up there? And she's like, yeah, you know. I think it's been open 3 years, maybe 4, coming up on 4. And I asked her, you know, well, do you know what that is? She goes, no, I don't know what that road is. And so I showed her on the map, you know, this is a 202, this is a freeway, this is the last leg of it. I said, so you remember this, you know, here you are, 10 years old, you know, and you're riding your bicycle and playing on the 202. And so when we go by there, every now and then she says, I can't believe we were up there playing like nothing, and now this traffic is, you know, crazy. So, you know, I try to bring those kind of awarenesses because it seems like the 10 has been there forever, but it hasn't, you know, and now the 202 is here. So talk about change, drastic. One of my granddaughters absolutely refuses to drive on the 202 because she knows that it was a sacred mountain and that it has been desecrated. Everything there, you know, the plants were moved and they were treated respectfully, but still, they're moved, you know. I look at that in the spinach, like I was talking about, you know, with the farming and different things going on, the chemicals, all of that, things are changing, you know, in the name of progress. And that's quite a controversial word. The upside is, you know, we can get a emergency vehicle in, you know, EMTs or whatever if we need it. That's the progress of it. But on the same time, you know, the roads are getting paved and a lot of things are changing. So I just try to bring awareness to the kids, to the girls like that. And like I said, I have 2 great granddaughters. When COVID came up, they didn't go anywhere. My daughter was taking them, the 2 girls, to the middle of nowhere with their bikes and their wagons and all of that. And when they first went to McDonald's maybe a year ago, they didn't know how to respond. And I'm like, well, that's a good thing, but they also don't want to be around people. So there's all of that, you know, and it's weird to see, you know, that it's happening in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And it's scary, but it also has to be acknowledged and also has to be addressed. And maybe we don't have answers to the problem, but at least let's, you know, keep in communication, keep in dialogue, and continue to share those things. I don't know if that answered. Yeah.
Thank you. You mentioned several different types of resources for clay. Mm-hmm. And can you tell me a little bit about what is the clay from the earth, you know, directly, or do you mix it with something, or what is the basis of your clays?
Well, I'm working on a project now, something that I've developed for my own interest, because here in Gila River, Pipash people, everybody has their own clay place, you know, highly guarded. And so nobody talks about where that clay comes from, but it's all processed the same. And I do know that you can dig a hole maybe as deep as this table, and I would be sitting in the hole looking for, it's caliche base. Nobody likes caliche, right? But we're looking for caliche, and I could be sitting there and there could be a wall like this, and the caliche is a white line, and you taste it as you go along. So you can go, it can go this way and stop. You can pick up, you dig, you can pick it up back here, and it might go this way and stop. Then you dig. That's one of the process here in this community. I was out at Colorado River area last week, over the weekend, getting clay over there, because how do they process it? And theirs is just, you find a mountain and start getting the earth. I'm like, man, and then their process is different, pounding, sifting, and making it like dough, but they let it sit in the earth for a while. We don't do that. And then they add other things to it. We don't do that. Then you have the Hopi, which very little is shared. I'll get the clay, we'll talk about it, but the pounding, sifting, it's the same process, and then made into what we call a dough-like substance. And I always say, you can make dough, you can make clay, you know, same thing. dulce with the micaceous. I'm not that familiar. I've done clay with Sheldon, the process, the pounding, the sifting. It's similar, but a little different. Everybody has their own way of doing it. So for me, I'm going, you know, trying to understand the dulce, micaceous. I'm trying to understand the Hopis, ours. I was gifted some from Thon Autumn down in Sal's community from Teresa Chagoya. Colorado River, that's a whole different, and so I have to remember where these buckets of clay come from because they're all processed different. And then I was in Idlewild, California with the mountain Kauai, and I was able to get some clay from over there, you know, and that's a different process. So I want to learn about process, but I also want color, and I want organic color, and they give me all of that. Again, I could paint it and do other things with the mesquite sap and that whole recipe process, but I'm looking for a little bit more, something I can do. And then once you do all that and you get it to the table, then it's like, okay, now I can make something. And that's what I want my kids to understand, my daughters, you know, my grandkids, to give that the importance. Yeah.
And along that line, with firing your clay, it seems, you know, in my experience, there are different temperatures that fire different materials. And when you're building just a natural fire, how in the world do you know the heat and how it's going to affect those beautiful beads you've just spent all that time making? And then what kind of vessel do you put them in to put into the fire?
Well, you know, it's a couple of things. One, somebody told me to get, I don't know what you call it, where you flash a light and it tells you the temperature, you know, one of those things. And professional, you know, people that do clay can put in the ceramic kiln, put those in there, and they measure it at 1200 or 1400 in temperature. I have no clue, you know. All I know is the granddaughter that's out there that gets the clay better have enough wood, because we're not going to fire it halfway and let it go and refire it, you know. So that's one whole process right there. And literally, when the clay comes out, I mean the beads come out, we'll like get a wet rag, whatever. Sometimes we'll soak some of the beads. Is it any good? You know, is it going to fall apart? Were they fired enough? That's our own way of checking. And then we'll clean them up real good, because we're going to, it has a 3% shrinkage, so we're going to put a needle through. We want it to be able to shrink enough for it to, the thread to go through. Are we using organic thread? Are we using commercial thread? All of that has to be understood before we even get to the table. So what my daughters do is they'll get a bead and like, boom, we have, you know, tile floors, and bounce it around. If it doesn't break, hey, it's good, okay, let's go, you know. And yeah, that's how it is. So we have our own technique of trial and error. And again, you know, the quality control is important. I tell the kids that, they laugh, you know, whatever. I say, yeah, wait till you get to a real job, and you know, they're gonna want quality. You'll understand what that is. This is a real job, you know. And anyway, just talking crazy, but yeah.
So we're getting some questions from the audience in the survey. We have a question from AR. There are multiple mesquite trees found in Arizona. Do you differentiate among them when using them for cultural activities? And if so, which species is used most often and for what purposes?
Again, in my area where we're at, in south of Levine, we have, I don't know how you call it, basic mesquite tree, you know, with pods. And that's what we use for the variety of, again, you know, making the beds and, you know, building for the little sheds, cooking, etc. But along Colorado River, in Fort Yuma area, they have what's called screw bean, which literally is a bean that looks like a cork, a screw cork. They call it a screw bean mesquite. And they're real cute, because a lot of times the kids will put them together and tie a ribbon at Christmas time, and they look like they're just little cute things. But anyway, and I haven't gone literally to go find and pick and use, pound and sift any of the screw beans, only the pods here. So I'm just using what's here right now. I'm going up in a month. I'm going to go investigate, go get pick some screw bean and pound it up and see.
Great. And we have a question from Linda. Are there specific ceremonies that you do with the mesquite pieces before you use them?
No, I'm not going to say there's any specific. Everybody has their own way of working with the organics, whether it's picking tobacco, whether it's the dead leaves from that, whether it's the spinach, you know, the offering. People can offer anything from tobacco itself to water, you know, a moment of silence. I mean, there's a whole variety of things that's used. And then again, with the tobacco, that's used with other tribes in their own ceremony, and I don't ask.
Yeah.
So.
And then we have an interesting question from Shar. They're interested in hearing more about your thoughts on what it's like to work with cultural heritage institutions like the Herd Museum. You know, what are some of the positive aspects of working with the Herd, and are there any negative or uncertain aspects?
Well, I just finished doing Herd Fair last weekend, I think. It was my 37th year to show there. I'm like, man, I must have been 10 when I started, you know, but yeah. So of course, always positive and negative, you know, people maintaining relationships, keeping dialogue open, you know, not always agreed upon, but open dialogue. That's important. Having people in our community and have an understanding of all of this. Yeah, I can put a clay bead on the table and whatever. But what about the process? You know, are they understanding the employees and the people? They're pretty good about sharing and, you know, trying to understand, but are they understanding the process of how we feel? You know, because if you go and we have a whole line of mesquite trees and you go chop them down because you want to barbecue, how do we feel about that? You know, it's all of that. And, you know, the negative, there's always, again, you know, we have dialogue open, maybe not always understood, maybe, you know, sometimes misunderstandings happen, you know, but again, that is an institution that's known around the world. So when you're doing work with and for them and in any way trying to assist or direct or just give them basic information, you know, that it's good to know that they will translate the information correctly and that they acknowledge the people from the desert. You know, all of us river people here, whether we're Colorado River or whether they're Okinawa River, you know, whatever. It's always to acknowledge where we're at. Now it's a new term, what do they call it? Land acknowledgement. But it's always been that way, you know? I don't know why it's new. It's not. But being able to speak to that, you know, and addressing it if it comes across in a negative way, and then explaining why is it offensive? Why is it negative? Maybe they don't understand, maybe I didn't understand. But it's always that. It's always about keeping those lines of communication open.
Great. And I think that's a good place to end. We don't have any more questions from the audience at the moment, but I feel like that theme of open communication has been kind of carried throughout your presentation today. And you know, I was really struck by the emphasis on the process of making, which seems just as important as the end product is how you put all these materials together. So thank you so much for sharing with. Oh, I think we have one more question.
Oh, thank you, Julianne. Actually, have you cooked with mesquite flour, or have you processed that? I know it's something.
Yeah.
It feels kind of trendy, and I just wondered if you do that.
You know, it was really funny because I have done a lot of work out at Wild Horse Pass Resort and Spa. I was out there for 20 years and did a lot of storytelling, and people were always asking me that. They used to serve tea, you know, that was mesquite, from the mesquite. And it's very flavorful. It's got a nice, nice flavor to it. But yeah, you know, we'd pound it, we'd make a little flour, we'd do like maybe half mesquite and half regular flour, you know, or wheat flour or blue corn flour, you know, and kind of mix it up in there because it does give it that. You can make cookies, you can make pancakes, you can make drinks, like I was saying. And And then one lady came and told me, oh yeah, you can find all that on the Google. I'm like, really? I said, I didn't know that. I thought I was your
trendy.
Google, yeah. So, so I did go and Google it.
Which part of the tree is the flower made from?
The beans.
It
the
is the
mesquite,
beans,
yeah, they look
okay.
like the,
Or the pods?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
And between that and, feeding your horses,
Yeah.
that.
Oh, didn't know that.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, Yolanda. This was a great talk today. And, for everyone watching tonight, thank you for joining us. And I think that's all for today. Thank you all.
All right, thank you very much.